Parts of a radical. And what do they mean? So you have your square root symbol, which isn't always going to be for a square root. Sometimes it's going to be a cube root. Sometimes it's a fourth root, fifth root, sixth root, whatever it may be. But you're going to have the check mark type part. And that number in there will be called your index. So if there's no number written, it's understood to be 2. But if there is a number written, then it's whatever that number is. So typically we will also see the number 3 there for the index. And I like to call that the number in the valley, because number in the valley is a lot more easy to understand for non-math people. So we have the number in the valley here is 3, and that is our index. And then you have your umbrella, and the number under the umbrella is called the radicand. So index and radicand are mathematical terms that if you are going to be going anywhere further in math up to calculus, then you need to learn index and radicand, or at the very least radicand. The symbol itself is called the radical symbol. So we have the valley and we have the umbrella are both parts of the radical symbol. What does it mean? Okay, so as I said, normally when we deal with these, you're not going to have a number in the valley. So that is just your typical square root symbol. So this is square root of 9. And we know that the square root of 9 is 3. So with this, you have to remember, though, that the 3 could be positive or negative. But in your introductory pre-algebra, in your introductory algebra classes, we will deal mostly with just the positives until you learn how to deal with negatives. So the primary root is the positive root. The secondary root is negative. So most of the time when we look at this, we will be dealing only with the positive 3 there. At other times, though, we will have other numbers in the valley. So if you have the third root of 125 equals x, and you need to figure out what this is, that is saying what number times itself 3 times will equal 125. So 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. So this is telling me that x is 5. What number times itself 3 times is 8? So you go 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So therefore, my answer is 2. On your calculator, you may have a cube root symbol, And that's what this is called with the 3 in here. This is the cube root, as opposed to the square root there. It can also be called the third root. So you might have a cube root symbol on there, you might not. Depends on your calculator. If you don't have a cube root written directly, you may also have instead an X root. And that will look like X root. So the X in the valley and your radical symbol being the root symbol. If you have that, then you will need to figure out something like this. Most calculators, not all calculators, but most of them require you to type the 3 first. Then you will have to type the second button, the shift button, and then you will have to type the square root button wherever it may be, or the X root button. And then you type what is the number that you're trying to get the third root of. And then you type equals. So that would then give you 2 as your answer. Some calculators have that backwards, and you just have to figure out which calculator you have. Does it have it this way, or does it have it backwards? So few calculators, very few calculators. You type it in as eight, and then you do the X root button, and then you type 3 to get 2. But that's very few calculators. Most of them will be this way over here. I recommend that you memorize that the third root of 8 is 2. Because no matter what type of calculator you have then, you can use that knowledge to figure out how to type it in on your calculator. Another one that you want to memorize is the fourth root of 16. So here my number in the valley is 4, so my index is 4, and my radicand is 16. When you go into higher levels of math, you'll need to know that. For my level of math that I'm teaching you, most people don't need to know that. If you're taking this in high school, you'll need to know that. So on a calculator, most calculators, you would type this as 4. Then you type your second button, or your shift button, and then you type your X root button. And then you type 16 and equals. And it will give you 2. And as I said, this is a good thing to memorize so that if you pick up any calculator, you can figure out how to type this in so that you can do it on a test, on a quiz, whatever, spur of the moment. Can you do it on your cell phone? Yes, there is on most cell phone calculators a root button, but not all. Which then brings us to another way of writing these, which will be covered in more depth later on in this course. And that is as a fractional exponent. So whatever the number in the valley is, gets written on the bottom of a fraction. So another way of writing this would be to write it as 16 to the 1/4. And to type that onto a calculator, you would type the 16, the raise to button, open parentheses, 1 divide by 4, close parentheses, and then equals. And it will give you 2. So as I said, we will get into this more in another video.